everybody kept asking, what does KMFDM stand for? Kennels make friendly dogs mean. Kylie Minogue fans don't masturbate. Konietzko's militia of freakishly deformed men kill Madonna for drug money. Kill motherfucking Depeche Mode. About 30 years ago, I was kind of not involved with music much at all. I played bass in a couple of bands, and it was kind of like a hobby, a side thing. And I was driving these guys to Paris, France, to do an opening to an exhibition, art exhibition. And these guys needed a driver because they were all like heavy alcoholics. And on the way to Paris, someone had the idea that this installation thing that they were planning on doing could have some sort of an audio accompaniment. And this one guy knew that I played bass, and so we just rented a couple of bass amps and got a bunch of vacuum cleaners set up and started this audio installation. And it was just constant droning and humming. Every once in a while, something like a fuse would blow or something, and something would change. And the bass guitar was just like on the floor in front of this amp, feedbacking, and I just kicked it around and made the rounds, manipulated the vacuum cleaners, and it was this total mess. Like people were just standing there like, oh my God. And that was exactly what I wanted.
My dad bought me a drum kit at age 3. I think he was actually over here in the States doing some work, and he found a little scaled down kid's kit, bought it back from the States.
For some reason, started playing drums when I was a teenager. I just really liked drums, and my first kit was a bunch of cardboard boxes and some butter knives, and it was just like playing along to my old record player.
I used to build drums in the garden with my neighbour. Sort of watering cans, and we had this Meccano stuff where we built a kick pedal with a spring on it and stuff. And I don't know why, I don't know what the influence was. I used to play Ice Cream Tubs to Top of the Pops on TV, black and white TV, I might add.
I don't think it even had a bass drum pedal. It actually used to kick the kick drum and just like kick holes through it. Like he used to have to take me down the music store at the weekends, complaining. Because he'd have to buy new drum skins. He's like, oh, I'll never break any on my kit. Why are you always destroying stuff?
My dad bought me a snare drum, then a hi-hat and a kick drum, all at separate birthday, Christmas kind of thing, and built it up, and then regretted it immensely and built a room in the attic that was soundproof next to his art studio, which wasn't soundproof, and it used to drive him mad.
My dad then gave me his kit that he used to play with his bands in the 60s, and he dug that out of the attic when I was about 10 and gave me the proper kit. And he used to get me on a practice pad and show me stuff out of a little drum book we had.
I'm from a very, very musical background. My dad makes Baroque instruments and plays in a Baroque orchestra. And so I started playing piano when I was 3 or 4. And was basically, the idea, I think my dad's idea was that I was going to be a concert pianist. That was the idea. Even though my dad played guitar and plays guitar very well, he never really pushed me into playing guitar.
But fortunately, they managed to seduce me into taking classical guitar lessons at school. By the time you're 3 or 4 years into classical guitar, as opposed to self-taught drums, you know heaps more, and you sort of develop more as a musician.
Joined the band as a drummer, and every now and then I'd pick up the guitar player's guitar when we weren't playing, and I found that I was actually pretty good as a guitarist. It came pretty natural, so that's how I got into playing guitar.
But I played in all the local bands at school. We had a band from 13 to 15 or 16. We used to do all these Hendrix and punk covers and hippie covers and stuff.
I just can't imagine ever sort of pursuing any other path. I just always just wanted to drum and see where it was going to take me.
Well, it was kind of like it was kind of like this duo, like it was Anesh and myself, for a couple of years, and then I had a friend, Rudolf Naomi, that I knew from some bands I had played with before. So at some point it was like, it would be nice to have a drummer. Anesh, well, Nick, whatever, he is a drummer, or was a drummer, but he wanted to be a guitar player. So we got this drummer, Rudy, in. At the end of the US tour, Anesh jumped out of a burning building and was very injured and couldn't play guitar anymore. We had like 4 or 5 gigs or so left. And that's when guys from the Ministry Road crew started playing with KMFDM. And that's kind of how the whole idea came, you know, like, cool, it's cool to have people just as guest appearances.
Sasha used to phone Raymond. Raymond was in KMFDM. Raymond is Pig, and he met me in a bar, and I started working on his records as an engineer and guitarist. And Sasha used to phone Raymond at the studio where we worked, and you know, send him demos for KMFDM stuff.
I met Steve in a pub. I was playing with a band.
And we were doing this gig down at the Water Rats, this club in London. And Andy was on the bill, and he was doing some sort of pop thing with this girl singer. And Raymond was saying, look out for a good drummer.
I was doing a sound check for them and sort of busted out my metal kick drum chops and stuff, and
then he just tore into his kit as he does every night at soundcheck. If you've ever had the misfortune of hearing us soundcheck, and he did exactly his bladder diddle sort of stuff all around the kit for about 5 minutes. And as I poked my head round the door and said, "He'll do,"
so I got cornered by this trucker-looking motherfucker in his stupid hat, who mumbled at me in a corner for a while. I go, oh, something about going to Japan with an industrial band. Yeah, sure. Give me a call.
Until I met him, of course, because he looked ridiculous. Tousled, ringlet hair, so you can imagine sort of Lionel Richie with, you know, or Jermaine Jackson might be a better one. But of course he had loads of rings and you know, that sort of eyebrow jewellery stuff. I can't bear that stuff. But he was just covered in this shit. And so I said to Raymond, well, the good news is I found a drummer. But the bad news, he looks like this.
I got to know Steve just from the same bars and the same rehearsal places. And let's see, how did that come to be? I think that's right. Pig were about to open for KMFDM in 1997 on a US tour. And they needed another guitar player, and my old band had just split up.
Yeah, and I sort of forced him to come for an audition in front of Raymond, which was hilarious, because it was the most simple, it was beneath him, it was beneath Joss. It was like a Pig riff, sort of...
And one thing led to another. Steve rang me up and said, hey, you know, we're going to the States in 10 days to open for KMFDM. Do you want to join the band?
It was like a sort of fun vacation, you know, we were all sort of fit and could not be destroyed at that age. And we just partied our asses off and went apeshit for a month and did some great shows in between.
We were just kids in a candy store getting fucked up every night and partying with everyone we could, because we thought this will never happen again. Once in a lifetime opportunity, let's go crazy. You know, we had our own tour bus, and you know, KMFDM were just this sort of the other band, but we befriended them eventually. But it took some time, you know, it's kind of not easy being, you know, drunk, belligerent English boys on the road, hanging out with Germans. It's not the best partnership.
And I remember Sasha watching from the side of a couple of shows, standing in the wings of the stage, and I could sort of see him watching, and I couldn't help thinking to myself, like, I wonder if we get a phone call one day.
When we toured as Pig with KMFDM in 97, KMFDM was the only member of Pig that was involved in KMFDM was Raymond Watts.
And Raymond always used to sort of say, I bet he fucking tries to steal you fuckers as well. You were right.
I think in 2000, Pig and KMFDM kind of combined for a Pig versus KMFDM tour, and I got to know Sasha a little better on that tour because we were all travelling together. And after that got done, Sasha rang me up the day I landed back in England saying, do you want to come and work with KMFDM and write a record?
It was in, I think it was November 1st, 1996. And on the way to this bar, we came by the old Phoenix Underground. And there was Rick, the owner, standing outside. And I was talking to Rick for a minute when I heard these like unearthly sounds coming out of that venue. It was like, holy cow, this is a voice like I've never heard anyone scream, maybe with the exception maybe of Diamanda Galas or something. And then about 3 years later, Skold and I were like thinking to add female vocals to the MDFMK stuff. So we looked through, you know, our contacts, and I was like, I remembered, it's that girl from Drill, you know, she might have the right voice for it. So I contacted her.
You know, I was just like a broken woman. It was I had gotten dropped from my label, and my bandmates kind of took off, and Drill, it was over. It was over. And I was pretty much, I thought I was going to kill myself. I really did. And I was sitting in an empty apartment with a bottle of wine, just totally trashed and sedated heavily. It was like something out of a movie. There's no furniture. There's some chick sitting in the middle of the floor with a bottle and a telephone. And, you know, the phone rings. And I hear this voice on the phone. He's like, yeah, Lucia? And I'm like, yeah, who the fuck is this? He's like, hey, this is Sasha from KMFDM. And I'm like, oh, hi, how you doing? And he's like, I'm all right, how are you? You don't really sound very good. And I'm like, no, I'm not good. And he was like, well, do you think you can get yourself to the airport? Because if you can get yourself to the airport, I'll be on the other end. And, you know, I got this project, MDFMK, and we'd like you to sing on some stuff. And I was like, I don't even know if I can do it anymore. You know, I know what you want. Like, you want, like, some really aggressive stuff. And I just made a fucking pop record that sucks ass and got dropped from the label and everything. And he's like, you know what? If you can get yourself to the airport, I'm willing to give you a chance. I remember listening to these tracks, and before I went into the studio, I was just shaking my head. I was like, I don't know. And it was one of these moments that you never forget. And he just put his hand on my shoulder and he whispered in my ear. And he's like, I believe in you. I believe in you. God, I could like cry just thinking about it. And I went in there, and it's like a volcano. The fiery pits of hell just came out. And I was like, do you smell smoke? Something's burning in here. And everybody looks up and they're like, shit, something's on fire. Well, the mic just like fucking started smoking, and I blew out the mic. And the scream, still there. It was still there. It just came out much bigger and fiercer than ever because it had been held back. You know? I just didn't know. And then the heads that wouldn't look at me all went, not bad. And then I was in, just like that.
And it was perfect. So that was her.
They're so totally different. Yeah, I think being on stage it's a lot more instantaneous and therefore more gratifying. The studio has a completely different set of disciplines.
Well, yeah, but you can't do one without the other. You have to do a record, make a record.
I like doing both. It's generally, I would say it's more fun live. But unless you know, obviously you have to create it first to have something to go out and play live.
If, for instance, Sasha gives me a track like Rebels in Control, the music automatically dictates for me a physical response. So I hear that, and I automatically go to a place. And my heart rate starts doing something, you know, it's either slowing down or it's speeding up. And then I think, okay, how am I feeling about this? What is this making me feel like? And then my feet start, you know, doing what they do, bouncing along. And then I'm like, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. This is making me angry. This is making me angry. What is it making me angry about? What am I thinking about when I think about this? Then I start thinking about things that I'm reading in the paper, and I immediately think, this is tough. This is tough. This is not angry like I'm gonna kill somebody. This is like fucking, who am I? I wanna fight. What am I fighting? What's going on in the world? You know, that whole WikiLeaks thing was happening, and I was like, this is what this is about. This is about, think about all the, you know, Anonymous. Think about, you know, people who are trying to enlighten the world to what's really going on, and trying to show the powers that be that they don't have all the control that they think they have, that we're not just a bunch of little people with no voices. Okay, so here we are. How do I want to say this? Then it's a world, the whole world is a puzzle. The sky is a puzzle of nothing but words and thoughts and colors. I feel like a shaman in that moment, and that's how I feel when I'm working. I embody whatever it is, so I am a fucking rebel in control, and that's how I feel anyway in my life, so it's not a big stretch, right? So that's when the puzzle's in the sky, you know, you just like mentally clicking and dragging. Then I make a sketch. Okay, I got words. Where's the melody going? Where's, you know, Sasha's giving me the music. Now I got to do the melody. And then I find myself, you know, over and over and over again, concentrating the melodic ideas until I'm ready to see the captain, who is the reality check, you know. It's either, holy shit, that fucking kicks ass, or that sucks. Go back and do it again. Go back and do it again. And he very rarely will come in there and say, let me help you write this. He's always like, no, you gotta go back and do it again. Big kick in the ass. Or, I love it.
At the studio, you get a great sense of satisfaction when you get something really all pulling in the right place. Playing live is certainly more immediately enjoyable. You know, you it's not so isolated.
You get to do it over and over, and it's a massive adrenaline buzz.
We can't just jump on tour and expect to start singing a 2-hour show every night, screaming at the top of your lungs. So you have to callous the voice, and that's when you get in there and you start shouting, doing your stuff, and it hurts. You know, even as a trained singer, when you're going through the set, even if you know what you're doing, if you haven't been singing regularly every day, your voice, your throat, everything has to get used to it. But then by the time you get into rehearsals, you've kind of calloused it. It's like, you get calluses on your hands. I mean, this is all kind of like a metaphorical idea, but the voice gets calloused, and it doesn't, it just gets stronger.
I make more money touring than I do at home, so from that aspect, yes, I prefer to be on the road more.
You've seen our tours. We're relentless. We can't, we can't really afford to take a day off. Ka-ching, everybody has a paycheck. So we have to keep playing shows. Once we're out here, we're doing it.
But as time marches on, then being home is more and more important.
Well, it's true. I mean, you've got such a gigantic back catalog.
The set list normally doesn't really change all that much from tour to tour. It's just every time when there's a new album coming, that's when there's a new infusion of new material coming in. And obviously some older stuff has to go, and as more and more new stuff gets produced, it kind of slowly moves forward.
I'm trying to think of a song I would bring in. There's a whole bunch that we haven't done live before at all, or haven't played live for a very long time. Last Things I would like to bring back, a Lucia song.
Last Things. I always loved doing that. I wouldn't say necessarily that it's my favorite, but it feels like my favorite now because I really miss it, and I think it fits the time.
My favorite is Kunst right now. A while back I would have said maybe Tohu Vabohu. And a few years back I said DIY. And they're still, like, that's probably my top three. But I do love Rebels in Control, and I do love, strangely enough, I love to play Pussy Riot, yeah.
I like Son of a Gun. Son of a Gun's a good song to play live. It's good and up-tempo and very guitar-heavy, and the crowd always gets into it and sings along with it, which is kind of fun. It's one of the songs I don't have to concentrate on that much, so I can just kind of goof around and like shout along with the audience and stuff like that.
You know, the whole band decides on what we're playing, and if someone was like, I really hate to do that song, then we'll just ditch it, you know.
Ave Maria. I hate that song. That's the one song in the set list that I would like to pull out. And when I wrote it, I said, I know that you're gonna like this. I don't think it's gonna work. And he's like, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And we do it, and I'm still saying, eh.
I don't know. I mean, it was like Megalo, it would be nice to take away sometimes because we played it so many times. I know Sasha gets a bit fed up with it sometimes, but I kind of always encourage Sasha to keep it in there, even though I'm bored playing it myself, because it's such a key song for the band. It's like if I went and saw Black Sabbath and they didn't play Paranoid, you wouldn't saw whatever your favourite, but if AC/DC didn't play Highway to Hell, you would leave that gig pretty pissed off.
Boots. We haven't done that in a long time. It's a cover of These Boots Are Made for Walking, and it was a single, and I thought it was horrible, horrible. Fortunately, we haven't played it since it was released, and I hope we never do again.
If there's any track I would kick out of the set list, it would be kicked out of the set list.
We're not alcoholics. But, yeah, you know, basically you're having a Saturday night every night of the week for however long the tour is. Musicians are great people to be around. They're pretty intelligent, even though they've got a dead-end loser job. They're very funny, very fast, and very adaptable, and great people to travel with. So you're always having fun.
It never seems like sort of that crazy or weird at the time, and there's a lot of it that's happened over the years that it's hard to remember.
And so, you know, obviously touring is like, well, getting back into the scene again. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I do. I play guitar and I get drunk every night and meet lots of people and have fun on the bus with all my friends.
We love doing it. It's sort of passion is like we create music so we can go out and do this and this be part of it. And, you know, apart from the odd tiff every now and then, there's great camaraderie and everything with us all on the bus.
Touring used to be much more of an adult playground than it is now. And I'm quite glad that that's over, I've got to say. You expended a lot of energy in pursuit of things that you didn't really need.
I'm always hungover. It's just awful. You know, the worst thing, if they had saunas on tour buses, because you just need to sweat out the booze. Andy gets a sound check and he'll be sweating, you know, and that means as long as there's a shower backstage, then or just stay away from him, you know, for the rest of the afternoon. But you can generally sweat out the booze, but playing guitar, I mean, you know, you just don't break a sweat until you get on stage, and then it's just all accumulates. And you're just sprouting vodka just for the next, you know, 2 hours on stage, and it was just like greasy shit on your skin, and so, you know, it's horrible. But that's what they say is rock and roll, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of that is I mean, a lot of the stuff you hear from bands like that have done that sort of thing is true. A lot of it's myth that's sort of built up over the years as well, because it makes a damn good story. It makes an even better book.
But you have to be careful because, you know, if you're drinking all day, it won't be long before it takes you. And I know we don't drink before we play. It's better to just be aware of the audience. I mean, they're all fucked by the time we get on anyway. You know, by the time we hit the stage at 11:30, everyone's drunk and fucked up, and so we're the sober ones.
You know, for the most part, it's a bunch of decent people we meet that will sort of hang out, you know, around the back of the venue or near the bus and ask us to sign stuff, which we're always happy to do.
Last night there was some girl and she was nearly in tears, and I was just blown away that I could have that kind of impact on somebody. That's why I always try as much as I can to, you know, be super sensitive with the fans. But you have to imagine, I know to some people I'm very, you know, I mean a lot to them in their life. But I just don't get it because I'm just a person just like everybody else, you know? So when they tell me, I'm kind of blown away to hear it. And I'm like, oh, wow, you know.
We get asked to sign the occasional boob or arm, leg. Hasn't been much weirder than that, really, but...
One girl pulled down her pants and she had a Dorothy tattoo from The Wizard of Oz, like her vagina was Dorothy. And she wanted me to sign that, and I thought that was pretty bizarre.
Did you sign it?
Well, you can't really say no.
Get asked to sign their skin, you just think they've just sort of had a few drinks and they're just asking you to write on them, which is fine. But the amount of people that come back and say, look, I've actually got it tattooed on, I'm like, why?
You know, there's people that have our faces tattooed on their bodies, and I think, wow, that's a commitment.
It's kind of flattering, but it's sort of like, why did you do that?
And they're people we've seen over and over and over again, year in and year out, and they actually feel like family. They're different. Then there's always the people that that you can't shake, people that are just too much of a fan.
Oh, well, last night, yeah, we just appeared to have acquired ourselves a couple of weird fan types.
When they start writing you like 5 to 10 times a week or a day,
They don't even look like KMFDM fans. This is what's strange there. It's just like a couple of old, looks like a couple of old fishermen or something. Kind of bizarre.
when people want the communication, when there's, you know, long-winded passages that never seem to end and they want to become a part of your life.
I was woken up about 10 o'clock this morning by a couple of dudes trying to get into my room. I could just hear the key going into the card slot on the door. So I just like pulled back the door. I'm like, what the fuck? What are you doing here? And they just jumped back, sort of apparently scared, which I would be if I saw me in my underpants having just woke up as well.
I love communicating with people, but you know, when it starts to get seriously personal and they're wanting to like get into my life, then I start to become a little bit, the wall starts to come down. It's like, no.
Yeah. The other downside being that obviously I miss home. I miss the wife and the dogs and my house and just the peace and quiet and, you know, comforts of my own home and my own bed and watch the shows I like and I could just stay at home and be comfortable. You know, it hurts. It's a bit of a strain on the body going out and drumming like a hooligan every night. And, you know, you didn't think twice about it in your sort of 20s and early 30s. It didn't hurt as much, but then sort of elbow starts to ache a bit and you get a bit of carpal tunnel in the wrist. It's like, ah. And just being aware that I'm getting older and I want to keep doing this, I've actually sort of been trying to pull myself back a little.
Oh, am I in great shape? It's all smoke and mirrors.
Pretty good.
It's all smoke and mirrors and a lot of makeup and a lot of trussing.
KMFDM diet.
What don't I eat on the road? If it's got a pulse.
You know, when we're on tour, I eat whatever I want, and when we're on tour, I crave meat.
I'd always just ate meat and, you know, fried crap and anything I could microwave before. Me and my wife were watching some documentaries about how his food, his mass production and all that sort of business. We were watching that stuff on Netflix, and we both sort of became a bit horrified by it. We're both big sort of doofus animal fans as well, so we just kind of looked at each other and said, let's not eat meat anymore. Just, you know.
I guess on the road, you know, when you look in the fridge on the tour bus, it's just beer and vodka, and maybe a yogurt if you're lucky. But it's, I wouldn't recommend it. Everyone gets sick, everyone gets ill, and you know, there's 6 or 7 people drunk with dirty hands, making sandwiches at midnight when you're on the road, you know, and you're just looking at all this sort of botulism going around.
It can't hurt. I mean, I've eaten crap all my life and getting older. What's it like to, you know, eat a slightly healthier diet? And then it sort of crossed my mind as well that, you know, it'd probably be beneficial and lose a bit of weight, get a bit healthier. It's probably better for drumming as well.
I'm sticking mostly with Vietnamese food, really. It's very light and can't go wrong with it.
I tend to search out pho at any given opportunity. Pho, for those of you who don't know, is a Vietnamese noodle soup made with beef and other good stuff. It's really easy to digest. You never get sick off it. It seems to have this magical property to cure all hangovers and colds.
When I don't get Vietnamese, I usually do Chinese, but very important to not eat curries on a tour bus.
It's always easier to give advice than to actually heed your own, really.
I would say stop practicing in your bedroom, because no one's ever going to hear you in your bedroom, and you haven't got anything to measure yourself up against, other than the records you're sort of jamming along to. But you don't know if you're any good until you throw yourself in the deep end. The one thing I always did was just like put my hands up, say, I'll do it, and then deal with the consequence, because it's just like I had no idea if I could do it, but I figured if I got the opportunity to, then I'd have to, otherwise I'm going to look pretty ridiculous. And for the most part, it worked. Sometimes I look pretty ridiculous.
I would say that if financial considerations become the be-all and end-all of what you're doing, then you should rethink at all possible costs, because as soon as money starts to dictate what the music you make, you stop enjoying playing the music that you make.
Be true to yourself is what I would say. And don't quit. Don't be a quitter. Like, perseverance is everything. I sucked. I was the worst singer in the whole world, and I just wouldn't stop. I wouldn't give up because I wanted it.
Well, it's really hard because there is no advice to give in that respect, because, like I mentioned, it's the reason why I'm sitting here right now is just a long chain of coincidences and unpredictable stuff. After I started recording stuff, I met someone in a bar that was like, I have a record label and I'm looking for artists I want to sign. And I said, funny you would mention that. I just have enough stuff for an album. So he was like, listening to it, he was like, I've never heard anything like this. And I don't know if that's a good thing, but why don't we just press some records? You know? And I was like, I don't have money to press records. He was like, I do. Before I know it, I'm standing in this pressing plant at like 5 in the morning and bagging 1,000 of my own records. And I figured I'd take some of them and go to London, like drive to London, and go to all record labels. Dropped off my records. Didn't get to speak to anyone. A month later, I'm getting a letter from someone in Liverpool that goes, I pulled this album of yours out of the dumpster at Mute Records. I think it's really cool. I would like to re-release it in the UK. And then I get a letter from Chicago going like, a band named Ministry wants to have KMFDM open for their US tour. Next thing is I'm sitting in Chicago And I have done a tour with Ministry, and Wax Trax guys talk to me and say, we sold 80,000 copies of your records so far. We want to sign KMFDM. So in that sense, I can't really give any advice other than if what you do is crazy enough for other people to go like, hey, this is crazy shit, and it's different, and it's cool, then that's maybe a good thing. What was what? The name. The name KMFDM comes from that morning of that show opening in Paris, February 29th, 1984. Me and one of the painters, Udo, sitting at the breakfast table in this thing, and there's a German paper, and somehow I'm just starting to rip words out of this newspaper, and the words form a sentence, and it says, "No pity for the majority. Kein Mitleid für die Mehrheit." And then Udo takes the Mitleid and the Mehrheit and switches it around. Goes like, now it's cool. And so that was the motto for the day, no majority for the pity. When I met Raymond Watts, who was the guy with the recording studio, he was like, he could not pronounce his name, and so he just said, it's KMFDM.
Has there ever been any actual rivalry or disdain for Depeche Mode, or was that just happenstance?
I mean, I know one Depeche Mode song. It's Master and Servant. I have not ever paid any attention to any synth pop bands because it's just a genre that doesn't interest me. And no, I have nothing against Depeche Mode at all.